Mhm. Mhm. Really gives you perspective into exactly what's going on. I feel like that is the start to the story, and then all the other research other investigative journalists have done, they're just adding the puzzle pieces. But that right there is the start to it all. The original patents back in 1999 and 2000, where Pfizer and the NIH have the freaking SARS-CoV-2 virus that's supposed to be novel, the genetic sequence already patented.
All right, good morning. Let's go ahead and start out. Let's look at this pre-market insight. Today we don't have anything on the calendar. Checking out our power range report. A high of 14,973 and 3/4, with a low of 14,957 and 3/4. Chopping around a bit, so we're trading neutral. With up 0.09%, volume of 55K, ATR 178 and 11. So you kind of see on this 15-minute chart, we're just chopping around all night, hanging around between our what I call the neutral zone, between the power range, PR +1 and PR -1. On the daily, we haven't really moved. We didn't do much yesterday, and we're still just kind of hanging around in here within this daily range. And across the board, we're trading in a range into today's session. The other index futures, the RTY, ES, and the YM, they have similar price action, almost identical, where they all have this slightly bullish sentiment, but they're still trading within their range. And the only thing we got really moving this morning is CL, trading, off of its highs back to its within its daily range. So that's just a real quick snapshot of the futures market.
And just to jump right in it where you left off, if we kind of pick up where we were off last week, Tuesday, we got to trade and experience that massive sell-off live on Squawk. Since then, we found our buyer. So that day, a buyer showed up to support the market down in the 14,778 range is the low of that block. Since then, we've got a kind of squeeze to the short side of the shorts moving up, giving us a lift all the way back to the 1500s, 1587 we saw, catching some buyers. And then typically, like we see in the overnight session, we'll have a seller just sitting on the offer, absorbing all of that, And then when it comes to the next morning's open, we get the sell off as they liquidate profits, bringing it back down, right back into the block where it catches shorts. And then we get the accumulation of those shorts, and then we lift it back off. So it's been kind of bouncing
Mm-hmm.
since last week, and we're back inside this bounce. So as MV3 Trader said, we're still moving sideways. We're stuck in the block that he called off with the levels. They match mine. It's going to be an interesting day because from what I'm looking at when I look at this 4-hour chart and just seeing the flow is we've got our game maker just really they're doing their thing where they've got volume trapped within this range, and that's one of the great benefits that they have as a tool when you've got unlimited money. You can keep volume in a range and have it just go up and down the price ladder inside that. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen today, especially with nothing on the calendar. As of right now, we've got a buyer testing testing where our offer has been sitting in the overnight. So we're right here. We'll see what happens in the open. We've got 9 minutes to go. Uh, Pretty much gonna be laid back. I don't see anything worth squawking out now. We are at volume, so volume has showed up where we are right now at 87 and a quarter, and we're just watching to see what our buyer does. As our passive seller is right there holding price from continuing higher.
And on that same note, I just realized we're at that 989 and a quarter balance level again. So they really love this price range here.
Mm-hmm. We've been in it for quite a few days now.
Yep.
As we're saying this now, it looks like our buyer's going on their move. We're testing the offer block, 89.50, 89 halves. Got a slight accumulation of buy orders coming in. There is what we're identifying as a mechanical level here at 91. I'm interested to see if we get a response off of that and maybe a return back to volume at 87. So it looks like there is an offer 89 and 3/4 that's trying to stop volume from even touching our mechanical level at 91.50. Offers moved to 90. Buyers starting to get absorbed as we're seeing an increase in participation for this attempt to push price higher. Okay, so our buyers throwing inventory, throwing supply, throwing orders into the market to push past this offer sitting at 90. Seeing this on both sides of the market, MNQ, retail institution side. We've tapped the mechanical 92 halves level, slight retrace off of it. And back into our previous node where we're testing our buyer that just stepped in for this small push up of a couple of, what is it, 2 points. 6 minutes to the open. Five minutes to the open. Our buyers attempting to go for this push to break this block. The block I showed the high at 92 and 3/4, which is right behind the mechanical level of 92.50. And this block that I've identified, it's also painted on the bigger 1 hour chart too. So kind of definitely expecting there to be some kind of explosive push out of it. But it'd be interesting too if we have a seller just come in and just reject this and we start to see price move down. Because we still got our passive seller just sitting in here, sitting on the block, absorbing these buying orders, these buy orders coming in, both sides of the market. So what we're seeing now is our offer at 91 and 3/4 has just, it's pretty much eating the buying liquidity that's coming in, still protecting the auction block before the open. We've got, what is it, 3 minutes left now. And I'm also still watching. If you remember earlier, I called out the mechanical level at 92 halves, saying that it'd be interesting if we get a touch of that, a rejection, and a move back into volume at 87. So far, that's actually happening as our offer is just absorbing all of the selling, buying that's been coming in before the open. We're seeing the retail side move to the offer and they've just touched volume, so that trade happened. That's very interesting. I'm noting these mechanical levels as they're just moving mechanically up and down off of them. Starting to see volume come in to the sell side on both markets now.
I have a volume point of control at 83.
And here we go, the final minute. We're seeing an offer come in on the retail side, but there are buyers on the institution side happily to step in. They're 15 seconds left. Starting to see where our buyers willing to hold the market. Buyer at 85 3/4, 88. So we're bouncing off that mechanical level we called out earlier. It's now moved to 91. They're still protecting the block at 92 3/4. Buyers still attempting to go for it, throwing a lot of volume into the just eating these offers, lifting these offers, sitting up top. Huge amount of delta on the retail side, getting trapped. Offer at 96. Still protecting that level in the block. We get there's a lot on the retail side that has gotten trapped at 96. Wow. Just pushing through VWAP. All of the buying that we saw come in up to 96 is completely left. Now we've got both sides of the market selling. I've got the mechanical negative 1.618 down here at 965. Got a mechanical level here at 75 halves, and then I've got the VWAP showing at 77. So we've got a passive buyer accumulating a lot of orders down here. And as a response, we're starting to see our seller just come to the market with more sell orders. And now they're starting to pile up on both sides. We're getting a push down into my liquidity pool that I show at 63 1/4. Let's see if we make it down that low. They're finding support at that inverse 1.618 level. Buyer at 69, buyer at 70. Now they're buying on both sides. And we've got somebody sitting on the offer eating this as a response. Now pushing. Now throwing out sell orders as a response. We've got quite a bit of nodes here down here that can be used as support for our buyers. So that just printed. What's our buyer going to do as a response? A lot of them got completely taken out of their position with the first move, where we saw a huge amount of volume come in and push up to try to break the auction block at the highs. We've got a buyer at 67 3/4. And the fight begins. One thing to note is momentum has declined quite a bit since that opening 3 minutes. The buying that we saw come in at 67 3/4 is now underwater. They're throwing sell orders into the market, and we're now pushing down below. And as a response, we bounce off of a node. Our buyer's eating a lot of this selling that's come in, and as a response, our seller is going back into it. So we still got this battle going on. Let's take a look at what's happening on these long-term charts. I've got 2 deep liquidity pools here. We're going to need a lot of sell orders to break through this. And with the momentum the way that it is, buyer at 60. Price 66. The market is selling. Our buyers just passively absorbing this and moving price higher now at 66. They're now accumulated and flipped the market on both sides. MNQ and NQ now buying and accumulating in the bid. The liquidity pool that I showed this fight is in, the top of it's at 68 3/4. It goes down to 57 halves. All that buying that was happening is getting absorbed now, and the market is flipped on the retail side to where they're selling. I'm not seeing the exact same thing happen on the institution. They're still buying and accumulating in the bid. So typically when we see this action, we've got someone on the offer, someone on the bid, retail MNQ, institution side NQ. They typically like to keep it in this area because they're getting volumes on both sides. The retail side is getting heavy with these sell orders. Still holding the block. They're fighting for 60. Got an offer on 60. Buyers attempting to get back within the pool. Starting to see buying come in on MNQ. NQ has been supporting this market the whole time since the open. In terms of delta and positioning. Still fighting at the 60 level. Also to note, we're still seeing momentum decline since the open. Huge amount of buy orders coming in on both sides of the market now. We're starting to peak outside of the pool at 68 3/4. Price at 65 now. Buyer at 60. There's still a seller sitting on this offer that's eating all of this liquidity, but our buyer as a response is still slamming the orders into the market. We're able to hold these levels. Still at 61, price at 66. As a response, our offer comes in really heavy, throws about a couple hundred contracts into it to move it down, and as a response, our buyer is still protecting 61, now at 66. There's a mechanical level where I'm noticing our seller is kind of sitting at 65. Price at 60 now. So our buyer's really being tested. We accumulated a lot of buy orders on both sides of the market that are going to be feeling pressure. They're still buying. Price 68 now. All right, I'm seeing big orders come through on both sides. We're starting to push outside of the pool. Still have our seller passively sitting on the offer. They're not allowing it to go too far. Price 68. We've got the node that printed there. 60. On the rotation of this new 1 minute, we just see a massive 1,700 contracts come in on the retail side, all buying, massive buying delta. It stopped by the offer at 76 3/4. They're still coming with the volume. Lots of buy orders now pushing the market up. Again, to note, we've still seen the momentum decline since the open. So if you just sort of thinking about that in the mind, we've got a huge amount of participation coming in the open to the buy side, someone sitting on to the offer, and then as the orders aren't flowing in, With that momentum, our buyers now lifted, allowing price to come down where they're accumulating to the sell side, to where we see price touch 52,952, where our buyer says, all right, I like it down here, and just goes for it because the momentum has been declining since then. Huge amount of buying just came in as we're pushing higher. We do have a mechanical level up here at 83.50, now 84.50, offer at 77.50. So that's very good from a predatory standpoint for our market makers to just really squeeze these buy orders that jump like crazy on price moving higher. Buyers starting to struggle by this offer that's jumped in at 77 halves. They're still buying though, but it's all of this buying that I'm seeing, it's really getting choked and absorbed here. Not a good sign. And we're noticing with increase in participation now. So as price moved higher, we got a huge amount of orders that took that as a trigger to go to the buy side, only to then get absorbed by a passive offer that stepped in and said no. Now volume has moved to this level, 68. Still trying to buy. All right, we've got another attempt building to break this 77 halves, but we still have our passive offer just with enough supply to keep that, to protect that level. Price 75. Our offer has now moved to 75 halves, now back to 77 halves. Buyers still going, they're throwing in the orders, they've got them. Offer still 77 halves. They're fighting at that level. Okay, so that just printed. We have a buyer that stepped in with participation. They've got the orders. On the rotation of this new minute, we've got 1,000, 1,100, 1,400 contracts now traded. As prices moving higher, as they're just pushing, boom, 2,000 contracts traded. We found our offer 88 halves. All right, now we're back to the auction block. The original block was 92.75, but when that initial buying came in on the open, it moved it up to 98 halves. We're seeing the original block still be protected here. And we're accumulating a lot of buy transactions on both sides of the market inside this block from 98.50 as it's been adjusted from the initial buy down to 90 halves is where I showed this offer for this sell block that we are now inside. Also to note, as we called out the liquidity pool of the buy side, 68.75 down to 57 halves. Our buyers supported that level with the slight break of it, and now we're all the way to the top of the block fighting in this seller offer block up here. Again, I guess I'm just making a point just of the concept of auction block and how they're moving the price ladder up and down these blocks, accumulating transactions on both sides of the market. Offer at 92, they're a little bit underwater, and our buyer's still going for it. As a response, they're fighting to protect 92, still in that offer block. Volume stepped in. So volume moved up there to 86 halves. We notice a complete liquidation of all the buying that came in. They've just been unwound on the retail side. On the institution side, a lot of those buyers are still trapped pretty heavy as we've rejected that 92 as the volume stepped in front of that at 86.5. We're starting to see the rotation move south. Now there is a buyer that buy order that came in after the open with increased participation. They're at 77 and a quarter, and they've protected that level as we're now attempting to break volume. They've got the inventory. We're seeing the buy orders come in. Now 87 is where volume's at. Attempting to push this offer that stepped in and just liquidated all of the longs on the retail side at 92 is the test. As our buyers attempting to get up there, our passive offer is fighting to protect that 92. They're at 88. They've now moved to 89. Our buyers really attempting, boom, we got the 92 touch. Our passive offer has stopped price from going any further at the moment now. As a response, our buyer comes in with more inventory, and they're pushing this thing higher. Big clue that they're going to keep doing that is, again, on the institution side, they're buying this whole thing since the open. They just pulled their liquidity to get more buyers as we saw lower prices. Now we're breaking the initial block and the adjusted offer block at 98 halves. Our seller has stepped in at 1500, that nice even number. We're starting to see a squeeze to the longs trap there. Let's see how they respond, because we've got a lot of orders that have been triggered to the long side off this break, only to then be pushed back into the block.
And the way that they painted that, looking at the candlesticks from a 1 minute and a 3 minute perspective, they set it up to introduce more buyers that like to take the break. So let's just see what they're doing with it.
They did it on the sell side when they broke the liquidity pool on the bottom. They moved it up after that, and we'll see what they do here, because there's a lot of positioning to the long side as we're breaking this block. So our offer that's sitting at 1500 is super underwater now. As more participation is coming in long, let's see how they respond. Protecting 1500 still. We're back at it. Also to note, this is our second time where we're getting an increase in participation to the long side, as more buyers are coming into the market and positioning to the long side. Currently, they're being squeezed with most of the participation happening with these last rotations trapped at 1500. So on the open of this new minute, 500 contracts fling to the market, mostly buying, pushes price to test the 1500 level again, 15,000 level. Still buying on both sides of the market. How I interpret this action we're seeing is that our offer is still protecting their block, and our buyer still has not broken it. Yeah, we saw price break it, but in terms of the positioning, they haven't broken it. They're not accumulating up here. They're being absorbed. With this new rotation that's active at the moment, we're seeing a passive offer step in front of the 15,000 level at 999 halves. Buyers still here. They still have the inventory. They're still fighting to move this market higher. Offers move to a quarter. That's 15,000 and a quarter. And as a response, all of that buying has just now been absorbed as the price is going south. Volume's at 88. Let's see what happens if we get down there,
So we can tell that this is mostly market wholesale price action. As we go back to our retail arbitrage type of an example, we can see at the open of this, they went out, they collected their inventory at lower prices, then they started selling it back to the market, and then that the picture that I mentioned earlier about how they painted it to introduce buyers into the market, that's their Black Friday advertisement. Like, we got stuff on sale, go ahead and come and buy it. And then they sold off the rest of their inventory, and now we're seeing that lack of supply to keep things going higher.
Okay, so that triggered a predatory trade for me, in and out. And just like he said, so wow, there was a lot of buyers, as we've called them out, with their increased participation. All of the increased participation that happened after the open was to the buy side. Most of that taking place on the break of the top auction block, only then to get absorbed and then squeezed. It's a very competitive market as we're now going south.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw it unwind and erase of all the buying that took place. And they did it as participation was declining. Like, I mean, it's just as you said, you're calling it wholesale action. And that's what they did. Now we're playing the range here. With both of the blocks holding, now we're testing our buyers again. Buyer at 58 and 3/4 down here. They've got quite a bit of shorts trapped. Let's see if our offer, our sell side, how they respond. As a response, we're seeing them come with more supply. They got more business to do as they continue to sell. We've now punched through the mechanical inverse 1.618 level. We've now broken the bottom of my liquidity pool of 57 halves. I do have another deep pool in a node right below that, and where we are now, node being at 50 even. This next pool is at 52.50 at the top. It goes deep down to 31.75. Let's see how our buyers respond in this level, as we're seeing a huge amount of sell orders come to the market nonstop. And you also have to keep in mind, where are these sell orders coming from? I'm going to say quite a bit's going to be new participation, seeing the fact that so many buyers were trapped in this previous move. And then also, all those buyers trapped in this previous move have to respond. They're either going to liquidate and get out because they're offside, or they're going to really, this is what they want. Come on, come to me.
Yep.
And they'll accumulate in these orders as they're coming in. So far, they're protecting this liquidity pool. Again, the top is 52 halves, goes deep down to 31.75, and they're protecting that node inside the pool at 50. How's our seller going to respond? They're coming with increased participation on this rotation we're seeing, as they're fighting and continuing to push. So they're battling in here. All right, so that just printed. We've got positioning to the sell side on both markets. Very, very strong on the retail side. On the institution side, it's a lot more lax. They're way more balanced. I don't think they're losing out as much as the MNQ participation is. Buyer at 40, we're getting a response off that level. Price. Buyer moved to 40 halves. Push back to 40. Massive slew of sell orders coming in. Buyer now 37.25 protecting it. Price 41 back to 38. So we're We're getting really aggressive fighting taking place now inside the pool. Buyer 37 quarter, taking on a lot of sell orders, and they keep coming.
Mm-hmm.
Another push, massive push of sell orders just hit the market as we're seeing a break of the lower half of the liquidity pool. Price now 28 halves. And what did it take to break it? This huge amount of selling to come into the market. We're also seeing momentum tick up as wow. Again, we're seeing this selling continue to come. Huge amounts on both sides now. Okay, let's look south. My next support that I show as a node on longer term charts is 96, so that's 896 halves. Let's see if we get down there. Brutal selling, just non-stop selling. If there's a buyer out down here, which there is, they're really having to be savage to eat all of this liquidity, and they've got to have a lot of inventory that they're collecting down here. Now at 918 and a quarter, our buyer. So they've showed up. How's our seller going to respond to this? As most of them are starting to get absorbed, with most of the selling taking place below 920. Buyer now at 920. Fighting happening at 920. The supply has not stopped. So they're just coming with more. So they're sitting on the offer and they're slinging sell orders into the market. Our passive buyer is still supporting the market right now, 920. So that's printed, nodes at 920. But on the open, 500 contracts are selling. Our buyers pooled. They've now showed up at 914. What's the response? Are we going to sling it back up? So they've squeezed out all of the selling that took the bait and were triggered to go short down here. Now underwater. Buyer back at 920, moved up to halves. Price 24, 25. Buyer now at 23 and 3/4. So it looks like we've got something willing to support the market down here. Back to 20 halves. Huge amount of buying has pushed it up to 23 3/4. Only then to get absorbed and squeezed out. Offer has taken over 23 and 3/4. Offer has now moved to 20 and 3/4. They're putting the pressure to the buyers. Momentum is also declining. Still fighting at the 920 level. And as I say that, we get an offer to come in, sitting on the offer, eating up any buy orders that try to lift, and now they're slinging sell orders into the market. They've been able to push it down. Price now 915. Our buyers still supporting this area though. Price 912, 911, 910, 909. Boom. Once we get the broke, we got a huge accumulation of offers to come to the market. I'm going to say some of that is stops because the number was so big right
Mm-hmm.
when we broke those lows. Let's see how our buyer responds to this as they're now getting closer to this node down here. 96 halves is where I see our next support. Let's take a look here on the 4-hour chart too. Yeah. All right. So once we broke and we got a huge amount of sell orders to come in, this right here is the real test. Let's see if they're going to move it back up or if we're actually going to continue going down. There's an attempt, really aggressive attempt to push higher. And this is what I call real price action. We can see that these for price to move the way that we're observing now, we've got market makers fighting for
Mm-hmm.
control.
And we can see that earlier I mentioned the wholesalers. Now we can see that we have additional participation in the markets. We're not as mechanical as we were. There still is a little bit of mechanical responses, but it's not as mechanical as it was with this increased volatility.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost hard to describe into words. You definitely can't. There's no way that I can describe with words how quick they're moving price and the flow. It's the hummingbird effect.
Mm-hmm.
But our buyer is eating the sell liquidity that took place down here. Again, as momentum is declining from the initial sell orders that came in to push down below our second block that got broken. So we're now below this block, this pool, with the bottom of it at 31 and 3/4. But this buyer who saw the opportunity of the decrease in momentum, all these sell orders accumulated down here. It's a perfect opportunity if you've got the size and the inventory to step in and squeeze it.
Yep.
And they're being fought by there's another participant sitting on the other side trying to protect the positioning that they've got into. Node at 920, our buyer at 907 halves. We're starting to see an increase in participation as you were alluding to earlier with this rotation now. Buyer moved to 918, prices moved to 920, so they're fighting up here now. Our offer is trying to stop price from going lower as so many participants are short, and our buyer is taking full on advantage of the fact that momentum was declining in it, and they're happy to step in to protect the market, push it higher. And that's exactly what we're seeing. As the orders have flipped on both sides of the market, we're now buying. So that's printed with increased participation. Our buyer, we'll see if they're really serious about it. They're going to protect that position that they just took. It's at 921 is where most of the transacting took place on that slew of buying that came in. So far, we're seeing it being protected, but they pulled their liquidity to see the response from our offer. Offer now 23 halves. 21 is the level where I'm really watching the buyer that just stepped in. Price 21. Huge amount of selling has now came in. Offer has moved to 21 3/4. Price 18. Huge amount of selling again has now come into the market. Price 914, 913. Offer at 21 3/4. Massive amount of selling just came in, pushed it to 11 as a response. You can see this is again where I'd say we've got someone stepping in really aggressively to try to stop it from going lower.
Mm-hmm.
They've now showed up at 14 and a quarter, really being aggressive, trying to sling price back up. We're almost back to 21, fighting at 20, fighting over 19 halves now. Moved up, we're now at 22. unwinding all of that selling that took the bait. We're now at 22. Offer protecting that 22 area. Now we're at 16 again. 12. All right. And there's the aggressive action as our buyer is stepping in again. And as a response, I'm seeing now the exact opposite happen on the offer. And I don't know if my mic picked up that beep, but I'm connected to a battery pack. And if the machines use too much, it'll beep. So that
Mm-hmm.
just happened with this action. Buyer at 15 and a quarter. They're still fighting to protect price from going lower. Volume has now showed up. 920, price now at 22. Buyer is still protecting their position that they took down here. So that's just printed. They found they put in support. If we look down, that's 15 and a quarter. Volume's at 20. We've got a battle going on to see if we're actually going to continue lower or if this is going to be a squeeze, possibly back into the pool at 31 and 3/4. So far, we're seeing the participation go to the short side on both sides of the market. Now we're at the 15/4 level. Also to note, participation is declining since that buyer stepped in. Huge amount, just as they say, that huge amount of orders coming down to the short side. We're now at 909, 910. Again, massive supply coming into the market again, pushing us down lower at 903. Once we break that low, huge amount of offers come into the market. I'm going to say for sure a lot of them are going to be stops. Now we're seeing the flow come in as we've just broken down lower. We've touched that support at 96. Is that where it is? 96 halves. And we're breaking below it with a huge amount of supply coming in. Very much competing with the most selling that we've seen so far this morning. We're kind of in that kind of frequency with this move as our sellers are pushing the market lower.
And I jumped in on that break right as it popped lower.
Boom. More selling coming in. Still competing with the most selling we've seen. Buyer at 91. Let's identify this buyer as they're just getting. All right, so now we've seen the most selling that we've seen. This is a sell order, both sides of the market, increase in participation. We've got positioning short now. There is a buyer at 91. They are deeply underwater, price at 84. Now, if I'm looking here to support, our next pool is 71 halves, so 871 halves. It goes as deep as 45 and 3/4. Huge amount of volume just came in to continue to push this lower.
I got a level right here at 884 and 3/4. And we're trying to push right through, but we are seeing a response.
The test for the buyers at this point is there's a node up. I see one at 91. I'd be curious to see if we get that high. There's volume. That's where the position of the offer that just came in, most of it was transacted at 91, but it doesn't even look like we're going to make it there as an offer is at 80.
Mm-hmm.
And they're slinging supply into the market. and sell orders into the market. We're not even does it really having a fight to even see it go north. Price now 65,
Wow,
64.
getting there quickly. I got my last target at 58.
Perfect.
The level I have below that is 832 and a half. I got other power range levels in there, but we're not respecting them really, so I'm not even really paying attention to them.
Okay, we got a buyer here, 65 and a quarter. We're getting a price response off of it. They were able to move it up to 72, but once that seller, as a response, is seeing it hit 72, they're coming with more supply, really trying to continue the push lower. Our buyer's not having it at the moment. A lot of shorts getting squeezed out. If you got into the market in this range here, someone stepping in, something stepping in. Price now 76. And we did touch this liquidity pull down here again. It's 871 halves down to 845 and 3/4. We got a slight dip into it, a splash into it, where we saw a low of 62 and a quarter, and we found a buyer. They've now flipped the retail market to where we've got accumulation to the buy side down here. And it looks like we're going for the test of that 91. But as we push higher, there's definitely a passive seller sitting on the offer with supply that's happy to step in and stop it from moving higher. And we've got the battle taken at 880 now. Taking place at 880 now. Alright, so I offer won that battle. They were able to stop it at 880. Now we're really waiting for the response of the buyers because we got an increase in participation on the buy side, on the retail side of the market, to where a lot of buyers positioned to stop this move here in front of the liquidity pool as we broke out. Let's see their response. They're now defending 75 and a quarter and accumulating with buy contracts down here. We're seeing a response off the 75 and a quarter level, price now 80. Now we're testing where the offer was protecting. We're splashing into it just a bit, only to be absorbed back down. So we do have someone protecting 80 sitting on the offer. Eighty's being rejected. Now we're looking to test the bid at 75 halves is where it's moved to. Now they're underwater, price 73 and a quarter. Still accumulating to the buy side though. On the retail side of the market, they are still buying this. On the institution side, we're seeing the opposite. So they're selling. Well, I'll let you know when they flip, because they're not stopping on the retail side. Now they're going to again to test the 80. They push into it. Let's see if we're going to continue to accumulate. They're attempting to, but there's an offer just passively eating this liquidity.
Mm-hmm.
Also to note, we're seeing participation decline. So 80's been defended. It looks like we're going back down to test 75 halves again. We tested it, rejected, went to go north again, rejected going north. Now we're testing the bid again. Price 73, buyer at 75 halves. Huge amount of selling now is coming in, only for our buyer to eat it. So back at 75.50. I've also too to note, institution side has switched to buying. They're accumulating buy contracts down here now. 75 halves has been protected, but our buyer's been pushed down to 75 and a quarter. We're now seeing price again test that 880 level. They're attempting to break it. Our passive seller is still sitting there and eating the buying liquidity up here. Also to note, both sides of the market are buying though. Not as strong, but we still haven't broken. Now we're going back down to test our buyer. So we've got a new rotation coming in. 800 contracts traded, 1,000 contracts traded, mostly to the sell side. Our buyer's been pushed all the way down to 70 now. Let's see the response. They're protecting 70. They're eating all of the liquidity that came to the short side now, and they're squeezing it as price is going north since that minute open. Now our offer is having to respond to this as they're coming and sitting on it. Our buyer's not giving up. We're now testing the 80 again. Let's see if they can break it this time. We're getting a huge amount of volume to take place to push. They've broken it now. Both sides of the market are accumulating again to the buy side. They haven't stopped since I first called it out. It's now a couple, 4 or 5 minutes. We've seen buying accumulate down here. Our offer is now sitting at 83 and a quarter. 83. They're again, our offer, our passive seller is really trying to protect price from going higher. But also to note, participation is declining. So this is when things get tricky. Now volume has showed up down here. 880 is where volume's at, and it's stepped in front of our seller at 83. Mm-hmm. Both sides of the market are buying though. And we're still outside of that pool. So we got the dip below 71 halves. But market is struggling to get back within the pool to even test the buyers. One thing to note that I haven't mentioned yet is we're starting to see participation increase once volume showed up down here. Our offer is still protecting 83. Volume is still at 80. Price now 78. Now 82. So they're going for the attempt to break down this offer again with increased participation. So there's a buyer stepping in front of the market at the moment. Seeing a slight splash above 83. Only to just be pushed down, and as a response they're coming with more inventory, more participation to the buy side, only to just be pushed right back down as they're still protecting 83. We've got another attempt coming again, but we've got somebody on the offer at 83. So that's just printed. We open up the next minute, 300 contracts traded to the sell side, now testing volume at 80, which our buyer is using as support. We got a buyer just in front of that by 3 ticks, 80 and 3/4. Testing the offer, how many sellers we got, because now they're just eating them up as we push north now. Huge amount of contracts just came into the market on the retail side as we're pushing higher. The institution side has just flipped positive and they're accumulating to the buy side as well now. If you guys can remember, we called out that 91 level. So the most selling that we've seen since the open happened at 6, whatever your time zone is of the hour. So at 06, whatever hour you're at, that's where the most selling happened. And the most transacting of the selling happened at 891. We've since then seen the market attempt to get back to test these sellers at 891, and there's the test. So we finally hit them, and looking at the flow since then, nothing but buy orders coming in on both sides. Super aggressive now on the retail side as we've broken 91, price 96. Buyer at 94 and 3/4. So they've rejected our liquidity pool at 71 halves. They've got volume right in front of that at 81. And we've got a lot of participation now being triggered to buy. And the market is going up. I missed a trade. Damn it. I should have been a buyer for that.
That push took me out of my position on my trailing stop.
Ah, that would have been just an easy trade too.
Yeah, it's set up
How
beautifully.
did I even? Yeah, called it out, did all the work for it.
Yeah. All right, so I think that's a good place to stop our session for the day.
Mm-hmm. I think everybody's starting to get the hang of it
Yeah.
because we're just seeing the same thing happen every day. They're doing the same truths.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how are we gonna do it today? Because it's gonna be unique and different every day, but it's
Yeah.
the same thing every day.
And
Great
it's, it's
session.
it's interesting that we keep catching this similar kind of price action on these during
Mm-hmm.
these sessions. Yesterday,
That is interesting too.
Friday was kind of dead. Yesterday was kind of dead, but then we get this extra energy into the market, and we get to catch it on during our session. So it's lucky for us.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so go ahead and wrap this one up. Have a good rest of your
Yep,
day.
absolutely. I'll catch you tomorrow. You'll stream it tomorrow, right?
Yep.
All right.
Trade it easy.
Good luck.